What's up, everybody? This is Ingram. I'm one of the Minecrafters, and today we are going to learn how to build an automatic wither factory that will actually create Nether Stars on demand for us. A little bit of a disclaimer before we begin. Please do not try building this inside your base for the first time. Make sure you know what you're doing before you absolutely demolish the inside of your base. Once this thing is constructed, you will be able, however, to stand right next to it without suffering any damage, so it is totally safe. Just make sure you know what you're doing. Alright, now the two things that are going to allow us to slaughter the wither boss like it's going out of style are the dark iron bars and reinforced obsidian. Technically, you can either use all of one, all of the other. We're going to use a hodgepodge of both just because the dark iron bars look gross. Dark iron bars are actually created using dark steel. 6 dark steel gets you 6 dark iron bars. This is how you make dark steel. Obsidian, coal dust, and iron and an alloy smelter gets you 1 dark steel ingot. So it's not too bad, semi-expensive, but you do get 16 dark iron bars, and that's one of the reasons we're going to use those to do it, because reinforced obsidian is expensive. It needs 4 dark steel, 4 dark iron bars, and a piece of obsidian just for every single block. That's a little too pricey. Next, the thing that's going to do the slaughtering is the Draconic Evolution mob grinder, and the reason we're going to use this is because it has an awesome range. It's very fast, and it kills the stuff instantly, just like the MFR one will. But we're going to use the Draconic Evolution because this is actually going to be a wither farm for our Draconic Evolution tutorial. You can make the Draconic Evolution grinder with a Draconic Core, which is going to use some of this Draconium ingots, and just another ingot and some diamond swords. It's not too bad, and we'll show you how to make this as part of our Draconic Evolution. Basically, these Draconium ingots, you just need to find Draconium ore in the end, in the Nether, or you can actually find it in the overworld. Draconium dust goes right into Draconium ingots, and that will allow you to make this awesome mob grinder, which, as we'll show later, has a 7x7 range instead of the 5x5 of the MFR grinder. Up next is the most dangerous part of this whole thing, and it's actually what's going to create the wither boss. We are going to use block placers from MFR and autonomous activators from the thermal expansion mod to build our wither boss. Now, I'm not going to complete this, but if I were to put a 3rd skull right there, that would actually make the wither boss. And so what we're going to do is build a system that will do exactly that for us. In order to get all of the different parts to the right placers at the right time in the right order, we're going to use these things that we've actually seen before in our previous thermal dynamics tutorial. So if you haven't watched that video, go check that out. But these are going to be fluctuating item ducts, which can actually convey redstone flux, that is power, as well as items. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a resonant servo that's going to be serving soul sand, whitelist that soul sand, stack size 1 in round robin fashion. So if we put that 4 soul sand in there, you'll see that it's going to actually give 1 piece of soul sand to each of these block placers, which will then get appropriately placed. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the top to these autonomous activators with our wither skeleton skulls. And I will only put 2 in there because I don't actually want to create this thing. But if you go ahead and look, you see that it's actually going to place these things properly. Now, one thing to note when you're building these autonomous activators, when you're setting them up, is you need to make sure that the configuration in the back is set to blue. It comes orange by default, and if you're wondering why nothing's working, it's because you need to set this to blue. You also need to make sure that these resonant servos are set to redstone control ignored, otherwise they will not work, and you will not know why. Alright, and last but not least, before we actually begin building this thing, we're going to need to know how to make an AE2 pattern for the Nether Star. So this is going to tie in a little bit to the AE Autocrafting, and I'll show you when we build this how we're going to do it. But basically what you do is get a pattern terminal, get some blank patterns from Applied Energistics, and just go ahead and put, I don't have a piece of soul sand on me, but you just put the soul sand there. The pattern actually doesn't matter. It's more the count. You want 4 pieces of soul sand and 3 wither skeletons. Make sure you're in processing pattern mode. Drop a Nether Star in there as the output, and then hit encode pattern. And if you look now, this encoded pattern says it creates 1 Nether Star with 4 soul sand and 3 wither skeleton skulls. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so now let's take all that knowledge that we have and actually build this wither factory. And the way we're going to do that is I have here just a basic AE2 network setup. Go watch our AE2 tutorial video if you don't know how to do that, but there's only soul sand and wither skeleton skulls in it, and I have a little conversion monitor here that's going to monitor how many nether stars we have. This is just a piece of cable running to the first interface and then all the way up to a chest. These are just to give us height. We'll set that up in a second. For the floor, just because, I'm going to use reinforced obsidian, and I'm building this one level up so that you guys can see what in the world I'm doing. And these purple things are going to represent just markers, visual markers for me to remember to put pillars there. You can do this whole structure with these iron bars if you have a problem with resources, or if you don't want to wait for all the dark iron to craft. That is totally kosher. It is very expensive to make the amount of reinforced obsidian that we're about to use. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off camera here, and I'm just going to stack this all the way up to the top of that chest. Okay, so there's our tower, and all I did was extend everything straight up as you had already seen it built. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this bottom layer, and we are going to extend the bottom part of the platform out here a little bit. And we're going to put a piece of dark iron bars like this. And this is going to be where when the mob is killed inside this cage, all of its loot is going to kind of fall to the bottom here, and we're going to actually suck it out and inject it into this ME interface. So if we go ahead and take our vacuum hopper and click it against this ME interface, and then go into the chest, and which way am I facing here? We're going to make the output, oh, that's the wrong way, go into the chest itself. So anything that gets sucked up in here is going to get dumped right into this ME interface. Then, since every time we kill one of these things, we get a ton of experience, why don't we capitalize on that? Throw an experience obelisk right next to it, go to the XP output, and if I could rotate this with the button there, aim that XP output right into this experience obelisk. So every time we kill one of these, we're going to get a ton of levels that we're going to actually be able to access. Next, we will put the mob grinder, and we can put this anywhere. I'm just going to put it back here to keep everything compact. But we do want to make sure that the fan is in the back, and the skull, you can not really see it, but the skull is going to be in the front, facing the direction that we're going to kill everything in. And I'm just going to put a creative energy cell on the top of that, and now this mob grinder is fully powered up. It'll kill anything in front of it in a 7x7, excluding players. Okay, so that kind of takes care of this on the bottom. Let's go up here, and we're going to build everything on the top. Now what this is going to be our chest, and the only reason I'm using a crystal chest is because you can open them when something is on top of them, which you can't do with a normal wooden chest. Go ahead and slap your ME interface on the bottom of that. Take your Nether Star pattern, put it in that ME interface, and then we're going to use these fluctuating item ducts again to pull the items out of there, as we have already seen previously. So to do this, we're just going to kind of punch a hole here in this fencing in the pattern of our wither boss. And then we're going to have to come inside here. Oops, I messed that one up. You got to be careful which way you place these down. To place the autonomous activators, we got to come on this side and aim these puppies in. And remember to change the configuration so that the back is actually blue. Now I recommend changing the aim level on the middle autonomous activator to be high. And the reason for that is because when this is going, if for whatever reason it places the soul sand in this pattern and takes a little bit longer to place the middle one, if it's not aimed high, you can actually place a wither skeleton skull too soon, and it will ruin the whole thing. Next, we're going to tie all these in with the fluctuating item duct, and we are going to use our wrench to separate these two layers. I'm going to put, oops, I came a little farther up than I thought. Put the resonant servo in each one of these. This resonant servo right here is going to get a piece of soul sand. Make sure to put stack size 1. Disable or ignore redstone control. Make sure this is whitelist and change this to round robin. And do the exact same thing. We are going to use a wither skeleton skull, whitelist, round robin, stack size 1, redstone ignored. Next, we need to actually give these things power, and this is complete overkill, but for reasons of symmetry. What we're going to do here is remember that these fluctuating item ducts can conduct power and items, and you can actually connect a power only pipe. So that's what this cryostabilized flux duct is. It's only going to transfer power, and what it'll do is it'll transfer power from the top down and into the bottom. So if we apply power to the top, it'll actually give it to the bottom and the next row rather, and we can see that these block placers and the autonomous activators are now filling up with power. Perfect. At this point, the last thing we want to do is probably to cap this thing off so that in case we go rogue, nothing's going to wander around and murder our base. Okay, and then the last piece that we need to take care of before we fire this thing up is to create our ME Autocrafting, our AE2 Autocrafting. And to do that, we're just going to take a crafting storage. We're just going to use a 1K. This is a small pattern and a crafting monitor. And now we have the ability to craft that Nether Star. So if we go ahead and say craft, it should dump everything into those block placers. And here we go. And the reason that we actually built this tower so large is because what can happen is if you tell it to build too many, their explosions push each other up. So you need to be very careful. You can probably only get away with, I think in testing, I was only able to get away with like 5 in a row. And the reason for that is because the explosions from each previous one bumps it up too far. And that's a problem because these things are like ticking time bombs. And if you keep blowing the time bomb farther up, then the last guy is actually going to blow out everything up top there. But as you can see here, we can easily get away with 4 of them. And they will all get mercilessly nuked. And you do need to be careful because just because these blocks won't take damage doesn't mean you won't. So be careful when you walk in too close. But if we take a gander here at what we got, look at all that. We've only killed, what is that, 5 or 6? And we've already got 14 levels of experience. And if we go into here, we have a lot of goodies now. Let's see what we got. 4 division sigils, 4 miniature hearts, which can be used to give yourself a permanent health increase. And the most important thing, perhaps, 5 Nether Stars. Now, one of the things this does presuppose is that you have some sort of wither skeleton head farm. So go ahead and make one in the Nether. Same principle, except use the Ender IO powered spawner. And the reason you have to do this in the Nether is because the wither skeletons with the Ender IO spawner will only spawn here. There are other spawning methods. For example, you can use an MFR mob essence farm that will actually spawn these guys in the overworld, and we have a tutorial on that. Make sure to check out our MFR mob factory tutorial. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. You are now experts at slaughtering wholesale wither bosses, and that's going to be extremely important for the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is, of course, behind me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on our social media outlets. We are on Twitter at Ingram, INGRIMMM. We are also on Facebook at theminecrafters.com, and of course, we have our website, theminecrafters.com. Make sure to check us out. Thanks for watching, and stay poised.